May the 4th be with you, and welcome to Simply Social Work for today's video. My name is Brianna if you're new. I'm so excited about this one. I'm apologizing up front. There are some puppy snores upstairs, some doggos wandering around downstairs. We're gonna make the most of it. But today I'm honoring my little nerd heart and honoring my favorite holiday, Star Wars Day. Star Wars is probably one of the largest global phenomenons, spanning 11 movies if you include the standalone movies and the 3 trilogies, several cartoon shows, and 2 different book universes. We've got the old ones, which are called Legends now, and the new Disney canon books, which continue to pump out each and every year. I'll be focusing primarily on the 3 main trilogies, the prequels, the Original, and whatever we're calling the new last 3. If you know what we are calling these last 3, let me know in the comments below. I don't think we've settled on a name. I'm also a little biased. I did not love them, so I also maybe am a bad Star Wars fan for the end, but whatever. I'm going to be focusing on the main movies. As much as Solo and Rogue One are amazing movies, they're kind of separate and they don't really deal with Jedi, so they are not included for these purposes. I'm going to take a look at the stoic and aloof Jedi from a mental health perspective to review the helpful, the unhealthy, and sometimes the downright absurd. So let's start with meditation and mindfulness. Unfortunately, a lot of what we have to go on to understand the daily life of the Jedi is from the prequels. In the Original Trilogy, the only true Jedi is basically around for some character development. He teaches some lessons about trusting your gut, but we don't see what he does really besides be a great fighter and manipulate some people's minds. The prequels, however, are at the height of the Republic when the Jedi Order is a very large group. One thing that we see come up or hear discussed is meditation. And the Jedi philosophy also integrates mindfulness into their daily living. Padawans are taught to search their feelings, aka check in with themselves to see what their emotions are trying to tell them and how they're influencing them. Anakin, Luke, and Rey are all encouraged to take a closer look at situations rather than immediately react to how things appear. They're all taught, usually in this stereotypical position, to pause and ground themselves. Yoda regularly is seen to meditate as well, albeit to explore visions of the future, but also to gain clarity when he's unsure of the things around him. The Jedi, through their use of the Force, constantly practice mindfulness and preach living in the moment objectively, rather than acting on emotional impulses. So I think that meditation and mindfulness is actually a big part of what helps the Jedi be trusted and wise peacekeepers. And there's been more research than I could ever cite in just one video showing how effective and powerful mindfulness is to both our mental and physical health. Meditation can take many forms, but it's basically just a way to pause, turn inwards, and practice some of that mindfulness. If you want to learn more about mindfulness, I have a couple different blog posts about it on my website that I will link in the description box below. But this part is 10 out of 10, absolutely a great aspect of Jedi philosophy and really effective for the lifestyle they try to live. So now let's look at attachment. This one is an obvious problem. According to the Jedi teachings, attachment is one of the main roots of all evil. They believe that by being attached to another individual, the strong emotions one develops for that person clouds your judgment and makes you unable to act objectively. The Jedi are big on logic and objective reasoning. They're also not supposed to take sides or have strong bonds. And what's one of the most fundamental relationships in your life? Parents. So naturally, how do we avoid early attachment? I'm glad you asked. By abducting your child. Now, it is worth noting that many people in this galaxy far, far away don't view the process as kidnapping for some reason. At a very young age, the home of a Force-sensitive child is visited by Jedi, and the parents typically willingly hand their child over for training. They know that they will never be able to speak to or interact with their child again, but that their child will be raised to be a venerated member of the Jedi Order, which are the peacekeepers of the galaxy. And while I like to think that my parents wouldn't hand me off to some stranger because I can move my baby toys with my mind, there are many reasons why a parent would actually give up access to their child. And we see this quite often in parents accepting that they're not able to provide the child with the best possible opportunities, and so they send their child to relatives or even to other countries. It's a really complicated decision, and it's important that we don't incite judgment on that, but there are some reasons why, in the hope of a better life, that they would actually make this decision. But the problem, obviously, is that the Jedi don't then provide any form of loving authority figures to help foster attachment. Attachment is actually incredibly important to our development and our sense of self in adulthood. And there are 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized. But disordered attachment can cause a whole host of challenges in worldview, identity, interpersonal relationships, and your overall mental health. But the Jedi's ban on attachment is also confusing because they pair each Padawan with a master who trains them and basically is a mentor, but they're not supposed to develop the emotional attachment and love that often goes hand in hand with the mentor-apprentice type role. In a lot of the examples we see in the movies, this doesn't work. Anakin loves Obi-Wan like the brother he never had. Luke also loves Obi-Wan, but in this case, like the father he never had. Obi-Wan's a popular dude. But Luke is also deeply saddened at the death of Yoda, who replaces Obi-Wan as his teacher. And while not a Jedi Master, Rey quickly develops a strong emotional connection with Han, who she views as a mentor. Parents, mentors, teachers, coaches, they all help us make sense of ourselves and the world around us. And we're naturally drawn to other people because we're social beings. We form relationships. The Jedi way involves trying to live, work, and spend time with other people without following our instincts and without feeling what we naturally feel. So speaking of feelings, let's search them and talk about emotion. I see the idea of good emotions and bad emotions a lot in my psychotherapy clients. Many clients come to me to get rid of or control their anxiety, depression, anger, and many people are raised to believe that certain emotions are undesirable and should be avoided. You can probably guess what they are: anxiety, sadness, anger, trauma, fear. But we don't ever say, I'm happy for no reason. Why am I like this? Like, there's no reason I should be happy right now. No, that sounds ridiculous. We don't try to control this better or stop this from ever happening again. But it is understandable that we label certain emotions as bad. They suck. Having a panic attack or sobbing your heart out aren't pleasant experiences. But unfortunately, they're both necessary and human experiences. Emotions are neither good nor bad. They simply are. How we choose to act based on those emotions and how they may impact our life is a different story. But the Jedi don't quite share this viewpoint, right? While they do often practice radical acceptance and non-bias of situations, they do see certain emotions as not just bad, but evil. Those who have fallen to the dark side are considered irredeemable and evil. These peacekeepers throughout history also waged wars to eliminate the Sith, which are those who follow the dark side. It's a pretty severe action to take. But how does the dark side work? Yoda summarizes it this way: fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. The concern lies in the fact that to be afraid is human, right? To be angry is human. Anger and fear are part of your body's warning systems that something dangerous or something negative is happening to you. So while I agree that hate leads to suffering, I completely disagree that to try and suppress, deny, or prevent ever feeling fear or anger is the path to a peaceful life. In fact, we even see the toll that suppression on Anakin has as he progresses in his Jedi training, right? He struggles so intensely to get rid of his attachments with his mother and to deny the anger he feels when faced with difficult things. The other emotion that's often suppressed is love. Love is a powerful emotion with the brain's reward system encouraging us in our pursuit for love. There are many strengths that we draw from being part of a committed, supportive, romantic relationship. But the Jedi are right when they point out that love can lead to problems too, right? It's hard to be objective in a situation that involves your spouse. Just look at Anakin and Padme and how time and time again he puts her before the Jedi and his duties, or even how his friendship with Palpatine creates barriers to fulfilling his duties. When Han dies, Rey becomes so furious that she chases after Kylo Ren and tries pretty hard to kill him. Even Luke can't think objectively about his nephew, and that leads to him weirdly almost trying to kill him at the first sign of trouble, and it destroys everything. Another easy example, right, is Rey and Kylo Ren / Ben. It's also Luke running off to go help his friends, and ending up he loses his hand because he can't kind of pause and plan ahead and he's not ready. So there's all these different kind of examples that, yes, show that we can't tend to be objective and don't always make good decisions when those we love are involved. But love is also what allows Kylo to return to Ben and ultimately save Rey. It's what allows Darth Vader to come back and become Anakin again and die and return to the light. Consistent theme throughout every Star Wars movie, and I'm gonna pull in the novels, comic books, and standalones, and video games and cartoons here, because the consistent theme throughout all of those is that friendship and relationships to others also save the day. They're what build hope and what makes the Grand Army of the Republic, the Rebel Alliance, and the Resistance stand up and fight for democratic society. Without love or attachment to others, we lose that. And ultimately, I think that's part of why each trilogy faces basically the same challenges. Next up, let's talk about the Jedi Code. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. I wasn't kidding about being a nerd. Anyway, let's move on. The Jedi Code is complicated in terms of mental health. So the code itself is a creed or an ethos. They're the words every Jedi lives by. And you can tell in the films that it brings the speaker a sense of peace and comfort. And in many of the old Legends books, the characters incorporate the code into their meditation practice or use it as a calming mantra. And this part is actually quite valid psychologically. In certain therapeutic modalities like CBT, clients are encouraged to create a coping mantra, which essentially is a sentence or a phrase that helps them combat intrusive or negative thoughts. Many athletes or performers use this, such as the water off a duck's back ritual on RuPaul's Drag Race while they're awaiting critiques. And many people recovering from addiction report finding strength and comfort in reciting the Serenity Prayer. And in fact, prayer itself, which many religions utilize, is a form of kind of a coping mantra in a way. So that's the good, we'll shelve that. The problem comes in the substance of some of the code. So let's break it down. There is no emotion, there is peace. No. Again, trying to rid yourself of all emotions does not work, okay? It's not healthy and it leads to harm longer for you. But the peace part is important though. You don't want your emotions to run your life. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. I like this one, honestly. This one is a keeper because it helps remind you that you can always learn, always grow, and it puts you in charge. There is no passion, there is serenity. Again, both of those things can exist. You can love your spouse and not succumb to anger all the time, the way the Jedi think. You can also be angry, but be able to regulate yourself and handle the situation appropriately. The next one is similar, right? There is no chaos, there is harmony. Sometimes there is chaos, right? Sometimes the world works in strange ways. You know, the Force works in mysterious ways. And we can't always control that. We want to hope for harmony. We want to work towards harmony. But just denying that chaos exists is just, it's silly, in my opinion. And finally, there is no death, there is the Force. This one's actually interesting. If you take the mystical force out of the equation, this kind of reads to me like continuing bonds. And there's been quite a bit of research done, although not recently, which suggests that instead of the traditional grieving process and the traditional grieving model, many people engage in a process of continuing to honor the bond that they had with their deceased loved one. And the Jedi also believe that those who die don't just cease existing, but that their spirit lives on after death, which culturally is also a common belief. So this final line can definitely provide some comfort to those who are hurting. And overall, if you're flooded and want to recite a mantra like this one, I can see how the whole thing could be beneficial. I just definitely do not encourage anyone to try and suppress their emotions only to find peace and light and happiness and never have relationships. You are not going to have a happy life. So let's talk about the Jedi as peacekeepers of the galaxy. The Jedi actually have great communication and conflict resolution skills. There are a few paths a Jedi can take. They can be Jedi Knights, like most of the ones we meet in the prequel and the original trilogy. There's Guardians, which are kind of left out of the main movies, although the Jedi Council pre-Clone Wars probably have some. Or Sentinels. Unfortunately, the only Sentinel we meet is Rey, and she's a bad example of everything, to be honest. But what all of these have in common is their lessons in diplomacy. The Jedi are primarily supposed to be the peacekeepers of the galaxy. As we see in The Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are sent to try and negotiate a volatile situation that the Republic has not been able to sway. They're highly intelligent and balanced, listening to your gut instincts with objectivity and approaching the situation and those involved and seeing what they tell you. We don't get to see the peacekeeping at its finest throughout the movies though, because in each trilogy they're focused primarily on war. But I think that's important because this absolutely happens in the real world. Where I live in Canada, we have a peacekeeping force for the UN, but that doesn't mean that we don't engage in military action. Ideals often fall short when real people are involved, and it can have devastating consequences, which we see time and time again in that cycle, right? Republic becomes empire, becomes republic, becomes first order. So finally, let's talk about tradition. Traditions can give people a sense of comfort and something to turn to. Traditions involve rituals, practices, and beliefs that are passed down through the generations. The Jedi are absolutely ruled by tradition. Even after the Republic becomes a dictatorship ruled by an emperor, the lingering Jedi still cling to certain aspects of the Jedi way. Obi-Wan and Yoda continue to wear the traditional robe, for example. Yoda initially refuses to teach Luke, who basically is the Jedi's last hope of rebuilding, purely because, according to the Jedi teachings, he's too old. Well, not purely, I guess, but that was most of it. In CBT, we often talk about rigid thinking. Rigid thinkers are those who tend to see things in black and white or right and wrong. There's one way of doing things, and they easily give up if they do not get this way. They're difficult to reason with and can be upset when plans change. Sound familiar? The only exception to this pattern seems to be Qui-Gon, who regularly defies the Jedi Council and encourages new ideas. But overall, the Jedi tradition, while beneficial in many ways, tends to be too rigidly relied on, and it holds them back in a lot of ways. And I think that's a big part of why Luke then leaves those ways. Rey as a sentinel kind of buries the lightsabers, and she goes her own way, because this really doesn't work, right? And it's part of why the Sith get to creep up on them in the prequels, because they're blind to anything that happens outside of their tradition in many ways. So there you have it, my perspective as a therapist on the Jedi Order and its beliefs in terms of mental health. I really hope you enjoyed today's video and have a very happy May the 4th if you celebrate. Let me know in the comments, do you agree, and what did I miss? What else are you curious about? Maybe I'll do a part 2 and talk about some of the other Star Wars universe. There was a lot I could have talked about here, and I could not include it all. So maybe there's next year, or maybe, I think Obi-Wan's coming out this year, right? So maybe in honor of that, let me know. So be sure in the comments as well to let me know what else you want me to review or to react to. I upload every other week. I did upload every week, but these videos take a little bit more, right? And with the blog, I want to make sure you're getting quality content over quantity of content. So that change did happen, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Take care, y'all.